Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota and Lakewood Ranch 4th of July service. My name is Mary Lou Keller, and I'm a member of the Worship Committee, which coordinates the Sunday services when the ministers are away. I hope you're all staying safe and well this summer, and I look forward to meeting you again in person soon. We begin our service today with a prelude played by Natalie Helm, principal cellist from the Sarasota Orchestra. Thank you, Natalie. That was fantastic, and it sounds so much better than it does over my iPad. It's really wonderful to hear live music. It resonates through you. It really is very moving. Thank you. Welcome to everyone watching this service. I'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors today and to invite you to visit the church website Visitors Center, which you can find a link on the homepage banner marked Welcome Visitors. We also invite you to register on our virtual guest book so we can send you our newsletter, The Contact, to help get you to know us better. The church remains physically closed, but you're welcome to attend our many virtual events, and you can get Zoom links by signing the virtual guest book. Our financial needs continue in spite of being physically closed, so please consider giving by clicking on the Donate button, which is visible when you open the homepage of our website. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker for today. Catherine Bonner is known to most of us as our Director of Religious Education and longtime supplier of Vassal on Christmas Eve between services. The Bonner family has been bringing us this Yuletide cheer for nearly 20 years. I hope you will all support Catherine and the Religious Education program by attending the intergenerational events that she has planned once we reopen in mid-August. Everyone is welcome, whether it's a game night, a playground reopening, or a pet blessing. You are welcome. I'd like to take a moment to say a fond farewell to two beloved members who are moving to be near their children in Las Vegas, Diane and Dick Happy. It's been an honor and a privilege to know them and to witness the dedication and love they have for our church. The memorial garden, which they so lovingly created and tended, has been renamed in their honor. And I encourage everyone who knew them to take a moment to thank them for all their contributions to our congregation. You will be much missed, Diane, Dick and Diane, but I know you will stay in touch during your next great adventure. And if those of us who get to Las Vegas, it'd be good people to visit. And I'm so sad to be reporting the passing of a member this week, Jolly Ennis, beloved daughter of Bob Ennis. Jolly was a delight to be around, and I look forward to sharing a hug with her on Sundays as she helped with refreshments. No memorial service is planned, but many of us have happy memories of Jolie that we will always cherish. She was 52 years old and died of natural causes relating to heart issues. Our condolences go out to Bob and his family and friends. In a few moments, we will light our chalice here in the sanctuary, and I hope you will join us by lighting a candle or your own chalice at home. This would be the perfect time to retrieve that during our next musical interlude with Natalie.
Thank you, Natalie. We look forward to more music soon. I'm the Reverend Doug Watkins. I'm on the clergy staff here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Sarasota. We will light our chalice here with these words. I invite you to spark your chalice at home as well. We light our chalice as a beacon of light and hope for those whose words have been trampled, but would be heard to create a world of equity and inclusion for all. I invite you to join us now in our opening hymn, hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land.
We'll build a land where we might love
As we move now towards the core of the service, we invite you to a time of centering. We'll begin that time with some words that are appropriate for this holiday weekend, taken from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles. I invite us now to a few moments of silence as we consider some of the truths that we personally hold self-evident.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life and shape of justice. Roots hold me close, winds set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Each year, papers around the country run essay contests on what it means to be an American citizen. This reading is one of the winning entries last year from the Hartford Courant. As an American citizen, you're part of a movement, one that's been seen by others for centuries and that's inspired and changed the world as we know it. It's the movement that started with the Founding Fathers and one that lies within each of us, the movement to be free. Thomas Jefferson in 1776, the ideals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness against an oppressive Great Britain government. He oppressed such in the Declaration of Independence, freeing America from tyranny with the ideals to be free. America was founded on preserving civil rights, liberty, without intrusion from an authoritarian government. In an era where few nations were a democracy, America stood out for its perseverance to be free and its people. With its Constitution, it provides a structure for a democratically elected government while protecting the freedoms and rights of Americans. By being a United States citizen, we display our freedoms daily by using our rights to speak praise and so on. Thus, the movement about freedom persists in all of us. The ideals of freedom and civil liberties have continued to be a hope to those globally. Before, few nations would allow their people to vote and have such freedom. Yet with the progress in the continuity of America, the world has grown around the movement to be free. Today, democracy has spread to many countries all over the world. The Constitution stands as an inspiration to nations around the world to protect their people's freedoms. Today, signs of oppression are met with revolt and the ideals of America. In Hong Kong, when oppression threatened their democracy, a revolt was displayed with American flags at their side to remember the ideals America beholds. The movement to be free unites us as Americans. We also go about our lives. We display our freedoms by using them, such as we continue to be the movement of freedom, the movement that's been changing the world for centuries and that has inspired so many across the globe. Yes, this movement is what it means to be a United States citizen. Doug Jerome, Timothy Edwards, middle school, grade 8.
I definitely echo what Mary Lou said earlier about having music live right next to you. The resonance is just unbelievable. The truths we hold. This past year, witnessing this raging pandemic, the social and racial unrest, and the broken political norms have shaken what I thought to be true. Truths that have been embedded in me from my earliest interactions with my family, my educators, and my community. Truths like, we all get ahead in life because we have the same opportunities. You just have to work hard. People won't act against their own self-interest. Our leaders look out for the common good. Our nation was founded on liberty and justice for all. So while life has added nuances to these truths over time, it has been nothing like witnessing this past year. How much clearer has it been in seeing the inequities in American truths? On who is essential and who is not? Who is valued and who is not? Whose voice and actions are tolerated and who is not? And how those who have power will do anything to retain that power, unabashedly breaking moral and ethical boundaries, and perhaps even the law. This year I embarked on a journey to peel back the blinders preventing me from seeing the inequities in our country in an effort to look for truth. Inequities that have been hidden in plain sight to me as a white person. Inequities that as a middle-class working person with means to care for myself and my family, I have simply ignored or simply not acknowledged. Inequities in our systems of government that I've never been motivated enough to either understand or to change. It seems over the past 4 years that there has been a lot more rhetoric around who is American and what makes you American and what America stands for. Aren't Americans those that are born or naturalized as American citizens? Are there other qualifiers that I am not aware of written in our Constitution? Don't we stand for all human beings being equal and that liberty and justice and the pursuit of happiness is for all of us? Well, to answer these questions, I needed to revisit the founding of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, and the U.S. Constitution, to look at the context then and the context today. Now, I am mindful that our history as a nation and a people did not start there in a vacuum, and that harms brought to the indigenous peoples from European colonization and the black slave trade are as an integral part of our story as our European founders. So historians disagree on what Jefferson meant when he wrote the words, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." So Jack Rakoff, an honored professor of history and American studies at Stanford University and the author of the book, Original Meanings, Politics and Ideas in the Making of the Constitution, he states that Jefferson was not talking about individual equality when he wrote those words, but that the American colonists as a people had the same rights of self-government as other peoples, and therefore could assume their separate and equal station among other nations. He asserts that it was not until after the Revolutionary War ended that those words took on a meaning of individual equality. Milton Friedman, a recipient of the 1976 Nobel Memorial Prize for Economic Justice and distinguished professor at the University of Chicago, wrote in an essay on freedom that we must look to Jefferson's next phrase, the one that says that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, as the qualifier for defining equality for men as equal under God. Others feel Jefferson meant free men equal under the law. So while the historians argue over the meaning, they all agree that men were meant to be educated, white, free men. So if that's true, one can only assume that all the rights outlined in the Declaration of Independence were exclusively for that limited group too. So no equity and inclusion in the Declaration of Independence? What about the Constitution? While the Founding Fathers did agree that there was going to be no national established religion, the societal norms that were supported by the religious teachings of the time were that white men were superior to others. That generation believed in a natural aristocracy, a hierarchy of talents, and that citizenship required civic and moral virtue. I wonder what they would think today. Indians were savages and therefore should be removed and or extinguished. Slavery was acceptable because blacks were only a step above animals, would always be inferior, and could only achieve a lift in humanity by being associated with whites. Women were weak and inferior to men in all aspects, and so needed direction and a firm hand from men. Well, as a result of their societal truths, it's no surprise that our Constitution was written to uphold slavery, render indigenous peoples as non-citizens, and gave no status to women at all. Yet the Constitution was written using the terms people and person versus men. Why? Well, Virginia delegate and drafter of the Constitution, Edmund Randolph, stated that the goal was to insert essential principles only, lest the operations of government should be clogged by rendering those provisions permanent and unalterable, which ought to be accommodated to time and events. Well, I personally am grateful that our founding fathers were insightful enough to use broader terms that can be open to reinterpretation. I also want to lift up at this point that the framework for our Constitution was based not on any other democratic ideals from Europe, but on the Iroquois Confederacy, who had a republic federalistic society where they had limited powers for the common good, and then they gave all the day-to-day laws to the tribes, very similar to our current federal and state system. So, over the course of our history, the terms and rights of the people and the obligations of the government have been modified, both through Supreme Court interpretations and amendments to the Constitution, and the truths we hold have changed. Those changes came through the suffrage and struggles of the marginalized groups voicing their grievances and truths in greater and stronger numbers, eventually convincing those with the power that change was in their best interest. But passing changes to laws require congressional members to make changes, and one truth that still holds true is that the right to vote still holds power. So let's talk about that. The Constitution, adopted in 1787, did not define who had the right to vote, but instead left that up to the individual states, with the caveat that Congress may alter such regulations. It did specify, though, that the Electoral College must be used for presidential votes. So most of the states stuck with the eligible voters being white male owners of a specified amount of property. New Jersey, because they went too fast, they forgot to add the male part, so women immediately jumped on that, those with property, took advantage of their lapse, and they were able to vote until 1807 in New Jersey, when, because New Jersey was doing poorly at that time, women and their votes were scapegoated. And so the legislature changed the voting laws to exclude women and make it for white males only. So in 1790, the naturalization law stipulated only free white immigrants could become naturalized citizens, yet citizens was not defined in the U.S. Constitution until the 14th Amendment, which was ratified in 1868. That amendment gave citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So this gave citizenship to slaves, but not to indigenous peoples. The 14th Amendment also defined voters as male. So they did the 15th Amendment, ratified in 1870. It prohibits voter suppression based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. But we all know that states implemented poll taxes, literacy tests, intimidation, and violence to suppress black men from voting. And the measures of redefining citizens and or the right to vote continued. Women were not given the right to vote until the passage of the 19th Amendment in 1920. Native Americans became citizens in 1924, but states still denied them the vote until 1947, when Miguel Trujillo sued the state of New Mexico for those rights and won. Those of Asian descent were not able to become citizens until 1952. The 24th Amendment, which was ratified in 1964, eliminated the poll taxes. As a result of the groundswell in the 1960s by African Americans and their supporters, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 passed, which forbids states from imposing discriminatory restrictions on who can vote. And the 26th Amendment, ratified in 1971, set the voting age for all citizens at 18. So the truths we hold as who is an American and who is included in the American ideals of equality, justice, and the freedom to live your life as you see fit have been and continue to change since our founding. I'm proud to be an American, where I can enjoy and do enjoy the freedoms, and the freedom also to make change. But our work is not done. It has been a struggle in the past to get to where we are, and we must continue to struggle to make the ideals of equity, equality, justice, and the promoting of the general welfare of all those in America a reality. But to do that, we must protect our greatest right, and that is to have a voice in our government. Today, lawmakers in 48 states have introduced at least 389 restrictive voting bills, of which 17 states have enacted 28 new laws, and 61 bills are still in the review process. These restrictive bills are not explicit in using race or other prohibited classes of discrimination in their wording, but they effectively suppress the rights of the poor, people of color, the disabled, and more from exercising their voting rights. Sadly, the Supreme Court just this week voted along ideological lines to defend the state's rights to have such restrictive changes. So I encourage you, as you celebrate today, the day of our independence, that you use your voice to convince others, and to use your voice and your power of the vote, so that the truths that we hold today can reflect our current American ideals. So now let us hear our closing words, and as we extinguish this chalice, let the final musical song by Lee Morris become your charge as you head out into the world today. This is from the poem, The Hill We Climb, by Amanda Gorman.
We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what justice isn't always justice.
Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished.
And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man.
The hill we climb, if only we dare, it's because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the paths we step into and how we repair it.
When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it.
There is always a light when we are ready to see it. There is always a light when we are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill, together we will. There is always your light in the dark. We are ready to see it. There is always your light in the dark. We are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night and be a gift. Together we will. There is always your light. There is always light. We are ready to see it. There is always your light. There is always light. We are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night and be a gift. Together we will. There is always light. There is always light. There is always light. There is always light. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night and be a gift.